And at some point, we should call Rich Ornberger, our buddy down in San Diego, also with Fox Sports Radio, because he said something earlier today, and I had to text him because I'm like, buddy, you're not allowed to say stuff like that. Now we have to call you. And he goes, yeah, that's my fault. You can go ahead and call me. That's fine. Because this is basically what he said. I thought it started out with kind of an inspired thought. Brock Purdy, or whoever is the 49ers quarterback, is basically like watching a quarterback through an Instagram filter. So in other words, you take all your imperfections and you just cover them up.
I like that.
And so then he goes on to say, look, if Kirk Cousins was the 49er quarterback, they'd be in the Super Bowl this week. And I'm like, I'm listening. And he goes, if Geno Smith were the 49ers quarterback, they'd be in the Super Bowl this week.
Whoa, hold on a minute. Hold on just a stinking minute, Ornberger.
Timeout, San
Right.
Francisco.
Totally.
I'm going to take a timeout. Here's a question I want to throw at you. You tell me. So, everyone seems to agree that if one person has the most pressure on them in this entire Super Bowl, it's who?
It's Kyle Shanahan.
Agreed.
No doubt.
Agreed. However, here's what I'm struggling with the debate, the conversation we've all had all year long. If the presence of Kyle Shanahan creates a system that literally means half the league can be your quarterback and you will succeed. If that's the case, why hasn't he been signed to a lifetime contract yet? Because I don't think such a thing has ever existed. What you're essentially saying is, and so many of you, damn it, with his play calling and he turtles up at the wrong moments.
Right.
But in the other side of your mouth, you're suggesting that his system is so good, he doesn't even need a good quarterback. What other coach in the history of, checks notes, ever can say that? So if that's how we really feel about Kyle Shanahan, sign him until he's 75. Right?
Well, depends on what you want to do at quarterback, because when he gets to a point where Brock Purdy's going to make big-time quarterback money, we'll see if he can build around him the way that they've built around him on a rookie deal.
Fair.
And I do think about Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and you remember all those years late in Tom's career when he took way less than he could have because he wanted his team to be better. And because of that, they won more than they would have if Tom was the top-paid quarterback in football. And maybe part of that was the fact that, you know, he had a very wealthy wife at the time, and so he was not hurting for money, and he's a different dude, and he wanted to win more than he probably wanted to make max money. So we'll see if Shanahan can do that, or if Shanahan wants to do that when Brock Purdy's up for big money in 2.5 more years.
It's interesting. I mean, we sit here without anywhere near enough of the info, but just the perception of Brock Purdy, it sort of feels like somebody who's not going to walk in and demand top dollar. I don't know that he could, but then you also have to wait and see what's the resume at that time.
Right.
Has he won a Super Bowl? Has he won 2? But, you know, he can't even negotiate this until after next year.
Exactly.
If he ends up, like, what if it's another run through the playoffs? What if it's another 1 seed? What if it's another Super Bowl? If it's 2 Super Bowl appearances or 3 NFC Championship game appearances and 1 ring or whatever, if you have all that, can that guy walk into the room and be like, $55 million? Let's go. Sign it up. And if he does say that, you're the Niners. What do you do? I mean, we need all of that info first, for sure. But I don't know, man. I don't know. He's at that spot where it's so early in his career, and I do bet that he is probably aware. I think we all are. Like, he's bigger and better because of Kyle, at least in some form, right? Like, a portion of this is Kyle and the roster and all. Like, yes, he's elevated by what's around him. I'd argue that goes both ways.
Right.
But I think he's aware of that. Don't you?
For sure. But when you get through whatever he gets through this year, he's in the Super Bowl. Next year, they should be successful, at least at some level. And then you get to where you're extension eligible. It's hard to say, well, you know, I'm a product of Kyle and all the guys around me, so I'm going to take $20 million a year less than I probably could command. I think that when you get to that spot, it's going to be hard. As much as he is a guy without ego, when you get to that spot, I think that he's going to want to get as much money as he possibly can. Anyone would.
Yeah, well, of course. And he will. And
Right.
he will deserve that. I mean, that's the thing. Everyone wants to label this. They all want to label it. And I don't think you can. You can't yet. And I've easily reached the time where I don't care anymore. Is Brock Purdy elite?
Doesn't matter. He's playing in February.
I don't even know how to answer that anymore.
And is he elite if he wins on Sunday and he's not if he loses? I mean, what does that mean? And I think that's where we get caught as a sports watching society is we start to label guys. And is Patrick Mahomes elite? Yeah, he's elite. He's won 2 Super Bowls and he's going to his 4th and he might win 3 or 4. And he's doing things that almost no quarterback. There's a very short list of quarterbacks who've been to as many and have won multiple. Like Jim Kelly went to 4 in a row and won 0. He's now going to his 4th and he's won 2. And not that many quarterbacks have won 3. I think the list is a total of 4 or 5 guys.
We could probably name them,
Aikman,
right?
Bradshaw, Brady,
Montana. And
that might be it.
I don't want to say Mahomes because he would need to win this weekend.
No, but that I think might be the list of 4.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who we might be missing in terms of, Bradshaw's got the 4 and Montana's got the 4 and Brady's got 16 or 17. I lost count. So, I mean, you're going to be on a very, very short list. In terms of guys who've even been to 4, it's not that long. So does Brock need to win this to be elite or not elite? No, I don't think that this game...
No, well, not at age 23.
No, and I think that answers your question about who is under more pressure or our question on the YouTube feed, who has more to gain? Is it Kyle or is it Brock? I think it's Kyle, and it's not close in terms of, Kyle's been around now for a long time, doing it as a coordinator, and he's been in the league, and his dad's got 2, and this one would mean a lot more to Kyle than it would to Brock, I think.
I agree completely on that. I guess maybe the question I'm actually asking is, do some of you, while acknowledging the pressure that's on Kyle Shanahan, the importance, whatever, would it mean the most to him? I don't even know how to phrase all that. This matters so much to everybody involved. But if you want to acknowledge that about Kyle Shanahan, okay, then are you putting your opinion of Kyle fully on this game? Maybe that's the way I'd love to ask it, because it feels to me like a lot of people are. The opinion of Kyle rides on, I think this is the mind of some. This is chance number 3. I reject that, by the way, because we've never done that to a coordinator ever in the history of ever. So this is not his 3rd Super Bowl. It's his 2nd. Yeah. It's his 2nd as a head coach. But for a lot of people, this is chance 3. You choke once, you choke twice. If you choke a 3rd time, that's officially your label. I would argue that for me, this is not to say that Kyle is undiscussable after this weekend, but you're not going to break my opinion on Kyle Shanahan no matter what the hell happens this weekend.
Or anyone's opinion.
Now, if you want to go, is this guy elite? Yeah.
He's elite.
Oh, yeah.
But I do also think that
elite.
The idea of he can't win the big one, it exists and it lives if they lose this one. And you could say what you want about Atlanta, and I agree with you. He was the coordinator, and he was not the author of the 28-3 meltdown. He was a part of it. Sure, they all were. He was on the staff. So does he get coordinator credit for that? Of course he does. But then you lose up 10 against Kansas City, and then if you lose this one again to Kansas City, people can say, well, you still haven't won the big one, and that's true. It doesn't mean he's fired. It doesn't mean anything about whether or not he's a good coach. It just means that he still hasn't gotten to that point. And it took his dad a lot longer than it's taken him.
And Andy Reid.
And many coaches.
And so many. I mean, Bill Belichick.
Harbaugh.
I mean.
Jim, not John.
Right.
John's got one.
John's got one.
Right.
Jim still doesn't have one.
If you look at the list of coaches who have one, I think the number is 34. 34 coaches all time have won a Super Bowl. And you look around the league right now, Tomlin's got one, John Harbaugh's got one, Andy's got a couple, Dougie P's got one somehow, and now he's in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Teach me how to Dougie's got one. Pete Carroll no longer with us, the gum chewer.
Yep.
He got one.
Yep.
So it's few and far between. McVegas has one. Oh, God. We know that. Yep.
Yeah. That's the deal. So it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard.
One guy gets it every year.
Yeah. And I mean, by the way, so, we mentioned that the no calls starting at 3:30. We'll certainly take them now, though. We'll stay. So 888-957-9570. Is your opinion of Kyle Shanahan riding on this game? Is that how many of you feel? 888-957-9570. This is a little bit of a parenthetical point. I'd like to make it, though. Just something I was listening to the guys kind of bark about on the way over here, Steiny and Goo. They're having a good discussion, but something hit my head with this whole idea of, Goo was getting real passionate about, like, it's okay for a fan to be upset that 2 10-point leads in the second half have been coughed up. And he is referring to Super Bowl 4 years ago and then the lead against the Rams in the NFC title game a couple of years ago. After what we've watched the last 2 weeks, do you want to know what thought kind of popped in my head? And I don't want this to sound like an excuse. A lead in the fourth quarter is a lead. A 10-point lead, though? What the hell is a 10? That's nothing. It's nothing in the NFL. You just watched the 49ers erase a 17-point deficit in less than a quarter. They came out in the third quarter, kicked a field goal, and then like 4 minutes later, the game was tied. So I think that the label, it's got to go both ways. If you want to say, coughed up 10-point lead in the NFC title game. Okay, ... erased 17-point deficit in the exact same game. So I guess my overall point is not that those weren't missed opportunities. It's that sometimes we create labels that we shouldn't. I would love for all of this to be a little bit more label-free. It doesn't matter if Brock Purdy is, quote, elite in your mind. It just matters what is. Do they win the game? Do they not win the game? Are the Niners better with him? Are they better without him? Same thing with Kyle Shanahan. He made some wrong calls. He's made some mistakes in big games. He's made some brilliant calls in big games. He's not a choker. That's a lazy label.
Well, when you're the play caller, you're the head coach, it's hard to really look at a coach and a play caller and say you choked unless you make a blatantly bad call or if you panic. And I don't know if you could look at coaches and apply the choker label to them. That one's hard for me.
It's a good point.
Because you don't go out there and play. Right. So they're up 28-3, and he's calling plays, and he choked because his quarterback fumbled on his own 20, and that's on Kyle? I don't get that.
I agree with you completely.